Welcome back to the Shivers Effect, where we explore how the mind, body, and spirit team up for healing. Today, I'm joined by Dounia Chadili, cancer researcher, hypnotherapist, and someone who knows the science and the soul of healing. Still active in oncology research, she's bringing now tools like hypnotherapy, NLP, and the law of attraction to help clients and caregivers navigate some of life's toughest moments. Beginning with fear, resilience, visualization, and how even in the middle of chemo rooms, lightness, laughter, and yes, a bad French cow joke can change everything. Let's dive in. Dounia Chadili. And you know what's great is every time we're in a class or a case conference and someone is it Dounia? And you're like, you got it. That's right.
And you know that regardless of how they pronounce it, I always say you got it. You notice that.
Yeah. Well, so my last name is Shivers. And for whatever reason, people really like to say Shivers. I'm not sure why, because it's just a regular word, you know? Like you can just read the word. You don't have to try and make it sound different than it actually is. But anyway, so unfortunately, my children now have to deal with that for the rest of their lives because they have Shivers, at least for now, in their names. Dounia, it's been so great to just reconnect with you. I'm now a graduate. Woo!
Congrats.
Certified hypnotherapist. Amazing, right? I don't feel any different though. So just
it's a long year. It's a long year, and
it was long and short at the same time. Like it's already been a year. It's been over a year. Well, for you, it's almost a year, right?
It's July 7th. It's my graduation.
Okay, so you have 1 month left.
That's the longest one.
But I want to know, so a lot of times when we were in our classes, and you mentioned this earlier, we were like on the same wavelength, where you said that maybe you didn't have all of the English words to say what you wanted because you're much more fluent in French. But then I was asking a question and say, oh, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. So somehow we were synced up, and that's really great to know that there is another like-minded person out there. But I think one of the other things that we really connected on, and we didn't know it until recently, was this idea of just having fun, right?
Yes, living life with lightness.
Living life with lightness. So tell me a little bit about like your journey to where you are now, because I'm assuming that you're from France. And at some point you came over here and then life went in all different ways. And it ended up at this point where you're on a podcast talking to a fellow student. So tell me a little bit about your journey.
I mean, no, I'm from New Jersey, Jason.
Really?
Born and raised in New Jersey. I was born and raised in Paris. I arrived in the US in 2013 in New Jersey. That's why I have a connection with New Jersey. And I've been living in New York for 5 years and relocated to California, working in biotechnology. Have been working in cancer research for about 18 years.
Wow.
18 years. I have two wonderful little San Francisco and LA baby girls, so definitely two Cali girls. And do you want to know what made me have to HMI?
Yeah, so tell me, well, I want to hear just a little bit about, so 18 years, if I have my math right, that means that you were in this biotech industry in France, right?
Yes, I've been starting my career in France.
Okay.
Working in cancer research. I was what we call clinical research associate.
Yeah.
Very cool job that unfortunately I think will disappear with AI. But you just go on clinical trial hospital and you work with hospitals that are conducting clinical trial, helping them to understand the protocol from the pharmaceutical company, looking at the drug. So very cool work at the beginning of my career.
And how did that go from that career eventually around to hypnotherapy or HMI?
So it's a very funny story. It's not funny. It's a funny story, but it's not funny. When you are a CRA, you look at, the drug, you do what we call reconciliation, meaning that you try to ensure that there is no wastage. And one day, this same drug arrived on my kitchen table, right? All of a sudden, cancer is no longer at work, it's at home.
Oh,
And whenever you start having a cancer journey, as a human being, you think about everything that you can do to be able to go back to being healthy.
right.
And you realize that chemotherapy, all of that is awesome. But there is this little bit of something more that makes a difference between the same person that will respond to a cancer treatment versus another one. And
Right.
that was this part that was missing, what we call, also the placebo effect. It really drained my interest. I was like, in our company, they were telling us, we need to make something, making sure we have potent drug because the placebo effect is here. And in my mind, I was like, yeah, it's power of the mind. And this is what starting drawing my attention. I had people responding to drugs that will not even make it to the market. And this is where there is definitely something more. Power of the mind. And this is how I start, getting interested to anything around the subconscious mind. And one day I was driving and I saw the HMI, Hypnosis Motivation Institute. I Googled it and the rest is history.
Yeah. So it really started aligning once you started looking into it more. What I love about part of what you said was that missing piece, because that's, I think, when people receive that diagnosis, right? They say, "Oh, you have cancer." First of all, it's a huge shock, right? But there's a thing that can happen. There's a part, and tell me if this is what was experienced on your side of things, and especially with all of the people that you've worked with. You can make a decision to actually change your life, right? Because we can treat it as this is this thing that I have, and then I'm just going to take something to get rid of it, and then it'll be gone, and then I'm just going to continue living my life. Or we can go, here's this thing that has started overproducing itself in me, right? Because that's cancer, just like it doesn't know to stop producing the cell. So it's just like multiply, multiply, multiply. So there's this overproduction of something, right? Overproduction of what? Energy, anger, frustration, like whatever it is, there's this overproduction of that we're experiencing. So perhaps that is a really loud message coming from deep within to make some sort of change in your life. And those people that do start to realize that, well, first of all, sometimes the cancer just starts going away on its own, right? Or with the help of chemo and radiation and the surgeries, they take that first big hurdle off, but then that transformation is happening. And I think that's kind of the most beautiful part of these kind of extreme things that happen in our lives with our loved ones.
You are absolutely right. I deeply think that you can make a difference. You have way more control into how, the outcome of the cancers than you can think. I don't know if you call it the law of attraction and to your point, I'm not saying that, people, make the cancer happen to themselves, but there are a lot of cancers that we still are not super clear where is it coming from. So it's a fair, question to wonder, like, does big emotion can also apply? Can we send the wrong messages to our body so it shifts to auto-destruction? And if we can do that, can we revert that message? Letting
Right.
our bodies that now it's safe, now I'm happy, I want to stay here, visualizing yourself being, healthy. So that's why I really decided to focus the rest of my journey on helping with cancer. I feel during my day helping them with allopathic medicine, and during the night and the weekend helping them with the mind portion, the limiting belief. And when you respond, the fear of relapsing, right? If
Right.
we can get rid of that fear, can we reduce the risk of it coming back? If we are telling our body everything's all right, I'm happy to be here, no auto destruction mode. All of that is just theory, but I think there is a lot of clinical trial on cancer and hypnotherapy and other modality that help you get the mind congruent with the healing body, that shows that it play a role. You are in control more than you think, and that's an amazing feeling, knowing that you can be in control.
Yeah, and I know some of the studies, even just on the very specific things of just like blood flow in the body, right? Where you can reduce or even stop, or I guess slow it so far down that it's like it stops blood flow to certain areas of the body, or increase it, right? And that's the thing what I love about like how Reiki or energy works, where someone's like, how does Reiki heal? I'm like, well, let's think about the body. If you have some blood vessels that are constricted and there's very little blood flow going through to an area where you're having some sort of pain, let's say it's a pain in the shoulder, what would really help that naturally? Well, if you had more blood flow, you could have more oxygen, you'd have more pulling out of any waste, you would have, it would be a much more healthy environment for a natural healing. Well, Reiki opens up blood vessels, and they've shown it on, whether it's X-ray, I guess, where you're seeing like little blood platelets just one at a time, barely fitting through, capillaries and veins. And then after Reiki, that's like just flowing through. And so with all of that, there is this increase to the natural healing. And is it the energy doing it, or is it just our body accepting of it, right? And that connection to that mind and knowing where this natural healing needs to just occur. And that's what I love about this whole mind body concept. And I know that that's kind of where your focus is now. And I want to hear just a little bit more about how you plan to work with it, or maybe something if you've already started, kind of like how it's been going.
So I've been just starting, so it's still a work in progress. But just as being a patient, right? When you are just diagnosed, or when your loved one is diagnosed with cancer or any life-threatening disease, the biggest fear is not being around, right? So just being able to visualize yourself or your loved one growing, visualize them being later in life, growing old, getting married. So just capturing this image, this is the only thing that you need. And I believe in the law of attraction. Oh my God, since ever we have started HMI, this law of attraction, whenever I have an anxious situation, I'm just going to visualize myself nail if it's a presentation, and it's always working. It's amazing. So I'm so grateful for NLP and the law of attraction. So this is what I want to use. So whenever, for instance, a client just been diagnosed and has a fear, maybe what he want to see is him being, at the wedding of his kids, laughing, being healthy. And maybe when we do that, we give our subconscious to work with image, and all what needs to be occurring will occur because we give a direction. I'm very scientific. I love the quantum physics. So for me, I feel that we are giving a direction, right? We are giving a direction, and then your brain calculates to arrive to that direction. But only the healing that it brought, because it reverts the fear of losing, just, relaxing, taking a deep breath, and wow, this is really what I want right now. I just want to grow old. I just want to visualize myself be healthy. I want to see, my kids being old. So this image only is healing, because there is a big stress component. So,
Yeah.
having them feeling better and more uplifted after the session, so they can eat better, maybe try to exercise, and just help, whatever treatment they are taking to be optimized, right? So very simple thing, very simple thing.
Yeah. It is such a simple concept, and then but so powerful at the same time. My
Mhm.
daughter was diagnosed with a very rare disease, mutagenic disease. So it's to be a carrier, you're 1 in 200. So then two 1 in 200s, which is a pretty big odd anyway, have to get together. And then there's a 1 in 4 chance of your children having it because it's a recessive trait. So we got the lottery, but not in the good way, not
Mhm.
the $1 million. But there's only just over, I think, about 2,500 people. So like all age ranges, 2,500 people in the world
That have it.
have this. And it's so weird because, throughout my life, like, you see people that like need really a lot of care. And sometimes you say to yourself, whoa, like those caregivers, my heart goes out to them because I don't know that I could do that. And then when you find yourself in that position, it's like all of a sudden it's like that cancer diagnosis. Like you're just hit with this thing of like, okay, I'm one of these people. And so maybe thankfully I sent my heart out to all of these other people because that's something that I now have to have. And so I've aligned myself to be able to do it. And it takes, takes a big heart and a lot of energy and resilience. I think resilience is the number one word for me these days, is to keep my energy up and a high vibration, to keep my focus on those future moments of seeing my little 21-month-old daughter have a graduation, be married, have kids. Like she can still do all of these things. And we've seen, it's been really helpful to be connected to these groups of people where we're talking to, women that are in their 40s and have kids, and they have the same condition. It's like, okay, I can erase out of my mind that this is some sort of like, horrible thing where she's not going to have a life. Like they have lives. They just have to adapt in different ways. And so I feel like being early on this journey with kind of the different approach that I have now, not just with hypnotherapy, but with kind of conscious parenting and being much more spiritually awake than I was when I had my first kid. I have all the tools that I need, both for myself and for her, and then for our family, right? For our little family and our bigger family, to have that life and to shift and have it in a way that's fun and light, because that's where I try to keep my energy, like, all the time. And you were saying that that's where you try to keep yourself too. And so I just wanted to, if you want to share about that idea of, it seems almost cliche to say stay strong, right? But there is something to that when you are a caregiver for someone that is in need, like people that really do need that care. Do you want to talk about that for a little bit?
And I'm so glad you bring that up, Jason, because I feel the caregivers, they need all the love, because sometimes it can be a very lonesome journey. I have some memories, you want to be positive, and, you refrain your own emotion, and, you will go to work and be like, oh, you have a good day. And whenever you are in your car, you just have the biggest cry. Oh my God, I look like a lemon. And then I go to work. And, so when we have this support, I feel the caregiver, oh my God, they are the ones that need to be on top of this support. So when we talk about, helping people with cancer, we're also helping caregiver supporting someone who has an important disease. So I agree with you. Let's send all that love to the caregiver, because they are doing the heavy lifting. And as caregiver, I think we were talking about taking things with lightness. So, and I have like old example. The first time that I kind of understand that, my aunt passed away a very long time at a very young age. She was 30 years old. And that was my first time. I was 8 years old. That was my first time going in funeral. And I was seeing, my mother crying for the first time, grasping as a kid the importance of the situation, trying to understand what death was. And I was really frightened and traumatized and sad, because she was an amazing person. And my older sister, she's 7 years old. I'm laughing because we end up, yeah. So she was seeing me being so panicked, so sad, so lost, that she decided to put on my father very big shoes, and she started to doing a clown dance. And I have two, we were the youngest. So both of us start, laughing, but the laugh you do in funeral, like, and it was healing. My mother, of course, was, how can you laugh? But I understood what my older sister was trying to do. She was trying to introduce me to the lightness, and that lightness could be brought at very difficult moments. That was the first time that I had that, and I love my older sister for that. She was telling me it's okay. Life is, life continue. I'm here. Right. Later on over the day, I was the one taking that role. We were there is nothing more depressing than chemotherapy room. I mean, like, if you've been through one of those, it's, it really smells like death, but oh my God, we were able to have the biggest laugh in this room. We were making joke. I mean, you spend most of your day in those rooms, right? You knew everyone, you crack joke. Now everyone starts laughing, and yeah, you can laugh everywhere. And it feels good. And each time we'll go there, we'll put very good music, shake, 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 just to try to, and it's healing. For me, lightness is healing. You can have your moment, because now I understand, past 40 years old, that life is good. You also need a good cry sometimes, because trapped emotion will, give you a bill at one point of time. I don't know if you will have stomach ache, but but lightness is part of being a caregiver. And when we had this conversation, I had no idea about what you were going through with your daughter. But whenever we talk, I was like, this connection, that makes sense. That makes sense because you have a lightness, but you also don't take yourself so seriously. You understand the shortness of life.
Yeah.
You understand the precious of simple joy and simple moments. So you just like, you roll with the flow, and yeah. And I felt that energy with you, and I'm like, now that makes sense. Now that makes sense.
Yeah. What I like about what I really like about HMI is because I'm a logical, practical person and a spiritual, metaphysical person at the same time. So I love taking the pieces because when I talk to other people, I can put it in a very practical way that can make sense. And one of the things that, they brought up was, and you heard it over and over again, is you can't feel two opposing emotions at the same time, right? Which is why the purpose and goal of hypnotherapy is get you over into this relaxed, calm state, because when you're in this relaxed, calm state, or whatever adjective that aligns with that, love, peace, harmony, you cannot feel the other things.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have that other thing coming up, where I'm getting irritated or I'm angry or I'm getting sad, or there's like a lot of heaviness coming in, you have this other thing that you can shift over to bring it to that lighter, higher vibration. And this is something I've been doing for a long time, but to have it in some of those terms where I can just say to clients or to people, I'm like, you can't be angry and happy at the same time. You can flip back and forth really fast, sure. Like you can go from one to the other, but when you're in this state of joy and happiness and laughter and love, you're not feeling even the pain, right? And that's kind of really how all of this stuff works. And so the more we shift over into what is supposed to be our natural state, like fight, flight is only supposed to just happen in those little moments where we need it to save our lives, not all the time, not 24/7. So I think our society is shifted us into, places of overload, places of anxiety, and places where we're constantly trying to find some escape. But if we are able to find that, take those breaths, right? Just alrighty, just like, oh, that feels so good.
You know what you say remind me of the NLP, being in control of your state, right?
Yeah, the state.
So, and there is a very fun story from Joy Tabanella. Very scared, someone very scared of flying. And having, being miserable for 14 hours flight, right? And at the end of the day, the plane is landing. The plane is landing anyway. So can you decide to modify that state to have just enjoy your flight, knowing that the outcome will be the end? And if the plane crash, at least you will have cool, very cool 14 hours. In any case, the plane will be landing. And I love that about, as you said, picking a state and being in control of your state. We are way more in control of our state that we realize. So when you decided to take the lightness state, this is something that you can, you can reach whenever you need. It's, and regardless of the end of the story, at least you will have a super fun journey.
Right. And it's about that. And I was just talking to my client the other day because he was worried, right? So future anxiety, worried about what's going to happen, what's going to change. I'm like, well, if we think about now, like none of that's happened yet, right? So how do we want to feel right now? Well, I would rather feel happy. Because if I'm happy, then there's not worry. I'm just happy. Okay. Now this happy that you're feeling now, well, now just shifted over. So now you're feeling happy again, and that shifted over. Now you're feeling, so as you're feeling happy, it's changing what you're feeling next by feeling it now, because next is it's passing through. It's trying to describe how time works, right? So if here we are, this is our state, this is what we want to feel, then we're feeling it, and time is going by. And look, if you were to rewind, there is this whole section here that was happy because we stayed happy in that moment, because it's moment to moment to moment to moment. And this is where I kind of veer off into the more spiritual stuff. By being aligned with happiness, with this high vibration, then that's what we're calling in. So one of the things that, and I know you've already kind of answered it, but my question that I ask all of my guests is what is that one thing that you wish everyone just knew? Whether it's something that you learned, it sounds like maybe you learned it from your sister, or if there's something else that like brought it forth along the way. But what's that one thing that you just wish everyone kind of had tucked away in their little toolbox for living life?
And I love that question. Don't take yourself too seriously. This is my mojo, and I work in cancer, and I also work in pediatric cancer. So heaviness, I know. So definitely I'm trying not to take myself too seriously. Sometimes I joke, very often, being myself. And I know it will look very cheesy, but compassion works. Even when you want something, trying to see, we say in French, and we need to translate that, but okay. Voir midi à ta porte, voir midi à la porte des autres personnes, meaning that seeing what 12 o'clock means for someone else, meaning that understanding the perspective, trying to being, in their shoes, and, especially under leadership role, right? And the more you do that, not only it helps, but you end up like caring, you end up seeing the best in people, you end up connecting, and it even brings some growth to you. So I don't take myself too seriously. I try to understand. I will say noon at other people's doors. And yeah, you can laugh about everything. I was telling you about this example with the middle sister, we always laugh even as we are crying. So we will be crying and telling us each other, but someone will always crack a joke. And then we'll have a good laugh and we'll be moving through life, not taking ourselves too seriously. And I feel this is really what made me a good leader, because people feel comfortable with me and we can have heart to heart. And they are happy to spend the day, with me. You spend so much time with the people you work with, so you might, have a good time. Make me a better wife, better mother. I joke with my kids too. They are now, both of them are very funny girls. They crack a lot of joke, even at 3 years old. And I feel, this is how you go through this long journey of life, with lightness, love, and compassion and kindness. We are all in this together. So it looked cheesy, but when you do that, you're actually making yourself feel better. Don't have a better word, so you can reword it as as we are so used to. I say something and you do it with a nice English vocabulary.
I know, just take all that cheese and make a grilled cheese or something like that, right?
And come on, I'm French.
Okay, let's hear the mad cow joke.
Okay. So it's, two cows talking in a nice meadow, and one cow is talking to her friend and say, did you hear about this disease, the mad cow disease? And the other cow look at her and say, I don't care, I'm a duck. I'm telling bad joke, but it's still making me. I have a lot of bad joke, Jason. Like, oh my God, my poor colleagues.
Dounia, thank you so much for just connecting and taking the time out of your morning, since you're over on that West Coast, and just chatting with me. And hopefully we'll get to do it again. Maybe once you graduate and things are all a little bit different. If they branch out in that way, or just to stay connected, because it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Jason. It was a very, very cool conversation. Thank you.
Yeah.